Every holiday shopper's got a list, but Ross shoppers, you've got a mission. Like a gift run that turns into a disco snow globe, throw pillows, and PJs for the whole family, dog included. At Ross, holiday magic isn't about spending more, it's about giving more for less. Ross, work your magic.
Hi, I'm Juliet Cowley, a retired FBI profiler and host of the true crime podcast, The Consult, Real FBI Profilers. If you're fascinated with true crime and criminal profiling, then join us as we discuss real cases and examine the behavior exhibited before, during, and after the commission of the crime. You can listen to The Consult wherever you get your podcasts. It's as close as it gets to being in the room with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 439 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm having an excellent week.
Okay, Ted and Bill.
Excellent adventure. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout-outs. We had Linda Sinclair.
Hey, Sinclair.
Laura Davis.
Well, thank you, Davis.
Cindy.
Hey, there's good old Cindy.
Katie Coplin.
Katie Coplin.
Sam Buckmiller.
What's going on, Buck Miller?
Rusty Ingerson.
Hey, Ingerson.
Constance Klein.
Hey, appreciate that, Constance.
Irene Morales Andino.
Oh, Andino.
Brian from Texas.
Hey, what's going on, Texas?
And last but not least, Michaela Brown jumped out at her highest level.
Man, Michaela, you are just nailing it.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected none other than Rex West.
The best ever, man. Thanks, Rex West.
You just messed up Rex's name.
Did I?
Yeah, you messed up your own stage name somehow.
That would just be typical me.
So, Gibbs, we have an episode out right now on True Crime All the Time where we're talking about Sean Johnson. And Sean traveled to New Orleans for a work conference. He went out to explore the city and was found dead in his hotel room on the last day of his trip. But investigators had surveillance footage of 4 people entering his hotel room. So they had to work from there to figure out who killed him.
It's an interesting case.
Yeah, it definitely is. Make sure you check it out. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I am ready.
For over a decade, there have been questions regarding the death of Michelle O'Connell, a young mother from Florida who was in a relationship with the sheriff's deputy. Her death is officially declared a suicide, but several experts believe the evidence points to a homicide. Michelle O'Connell was only 24 when she died. She was the youngest of 6 children. She was described as a fun-loving, outgoing person. Her sister, Jennifer Kreitz, told PBS Frontline that she was athletic and loved swimming. According to the New York Times, at the age of 15, Michelle was arrested after a fight with her brother. The police were called to her home again the next year after she got into a fight with her sister.
Sounds like she's a fighter.
Or at least the family is, including her. Michelle was put under the supervision of juvenile authorities for anger issues and depression, but with medication and counseling, she improved. And, let's face it, a lot of kids go through bouts of depression. They have issues with anger and all kinds of other things.
It's not uncommon.
No, it's a tough time. You talk about 15, 16 years old. That's a tough time in a person's life. There's a lot going on in the body.
Absolutely.
And in the mind. Michelle became a mother at age 20. She was a single parent to her daughter, Alexis, who was the center of her life. Michelle worked 2 to 3 jobs to support Alexis.
She was busy.
Yeah. When Michelle decided to go skydiving, she wrote a letter for Alexis in case something happened to her. This letter shows the love she felt for her daughter. Michelle wrote, "My life began after having Alexis, and the love I have for her could never be measured. but I want to make sure that if something does happen to me, that Alexis will be loved, safe, happy, praised, and protected. I don't like thinking about it because I plan on being here for Alexis for a long time. Several members of Michelle's family worked for the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. Her brother Scott was a deputy, and her mother Patty was a file clerk. In 2009, Michelle was introduced to Deputy Jeremy Banks by one of her brothers. Jeremy was 23 years old. He came from a law enforcement family. His father was an officer with the State Wildlife Division, and his stepfather worked for the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
Sounds like a career family in law enforcement.
Yeah, I mean, both of them. Really, I mean, I get it. Michelle's not in law enforcement, but, a bunch of members of her family was in it. She meets this guy, Jeremy. He's a deputy. His whole family seems to be in law enforcement. By 2010, Jeremy had been an officer for 4 years. Jeremy later admitted he had not always had the best reputation. He was brought up on departmental charges for making an obscene gesture in uniform. He told Internal Affairs, per the New York Times, "I was looked at as a young punk, just cocky, just full of myself." All right, I got to be honest with you. Those things are a little bit scary in a young police officer, given the amount of power that this person has and the fact that they're carrying a gun pretty much all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little nerve-wracking thinking that something like that type of power is not being checked, but I think it probably happens out there more than we realize.
I think it happens a lot. Michelle's family initially approved of Jeremy and thought he would be a good protector because he was a police officer. Around the time Michelle moved in with him, they felt he was becoming disrespectful and controlling. And there's that word that comes up, so very often in these cases that we do. Controlling. Why are people so controlling? A month or two before she died, Michelle told her mother, "It's getting bad." Her mother told her to come home. In the late summer of 2010, Michelle was in the process of taking control of her life. According to her friend Sierra Morris, Michelle had been working part-time at a daycare center, but she was promoted to a full-time position with benefits. Sierra said she was going to build a life for her and Lexi without having to rely on anyone else. On September 2nd, 2010, Michelle told her family and a friend she was going to end her relationship with Jeremy Banks. Over lunch with her sister Christine, Michelle talked about breaking up with Jeremy and finding a new apartment. She still planned on attending a Paramore concert with Jeremy that evening.
Paramore. I used to like Paramore. I thought they went away. I haven't heard them lately.
I've never heard of them. Have no idea who they are.
She's got an amazing voice, the singer. She's got for a little...
Small person?
Yeah.
She's like short or something?
Yeah, just a tiny...
Is this a group, Paramore?
Yeah, it's a group.
Never heard of them.
I think they're out of Tennessee, but she's just got a...
Are they country?
Nope.
That's why I never heard of them.
She has a very, very good but loud voice.
Okay. Christine recounted the front line. And I'm making lunch, and I said, "Well, what's going on?" She was really upset. She said, "Chris, it's so bad." And she just, hung her head. I told her, "Don't go to the concert." And she said, "No, I'm going. I bought the tickets. I'm going to go. I'm going to have a good time, but I'm breaking up with him tonight. It's done. I'm leaving. I'm going." And that was the last time I saw her. Michelle's brother, Sean O'Connell, also attended the concert and had a seat next to Jeremy and Michelle. Michelle was happy and excited to be there, but Jeremy, according to Sean, seemed pissed off and kind of withdrawn. Although she seemed happy, Michelle sent concerning texts to her sister Christine during the concert. Christine was babysitting Alexis that night. Michelle wrote, "Promise me one thing. Lexi will be happy and always have a good life." Chrissy replied, "Promise you what?" Michelle wrote that no matter what, Lexi will always be safe and loved. Christy responded with, "What's going on? I'm scared." At the end of the concert, Michelle texted Chrissy, "I'll be there soon." But she never showed up to get Alexis. According to Frontline, Michelle sent her final text to her brother Scott. She wrote, "Lexi, never forget, And I think I just want to talk about some of these texts for a little bit. I don't know. If I got these from someone, I, like Chrissy, would be, scared. I'd be wondering what is going on. These are not only cryptic, but they're also a little ominous as well.
Definitely concerning, and I think you would be sitting there staring at your phone, waiting for another message to come over, maybe with some clarity, or even more concern, wondering what will that next text say?
Yeah, because there's really, not much clarity or context to them, right? And I think that's what makes them a little scary. Michelle broke up with Jeremy on their way home from the concert. Shortly after she arrived home, she died from a fatal gunshot wound. Jeremy called 911. He told the operator, "Please get someone to my house. Please. It's my girlfriend. I think she just shot herself. There's blood everywhere. Please." Officers found Jeremy crouched by a bedroom door. Michelle was lying nearby. She had a gunshot wound to the inside of her mouth. A deputy wrote in a police report that while escorting Jeremy from the home, he was combative and had alcohol on his breath.
So, under the influence, sounds like, and unruly.
Yeah, I mean, the alcohol doesn't surprise me. I think a lot of people drink at a concert. But what do you make of the word combative? I get it, you're upset. But as a law enforcement officer, what do you have to be combative about with another law enforcement officer in the wake of what you're thinking is some, obviously major tragedy? Combative just doesn't seem like a word that would come up.
No, unless he's just
mad,
or, sometimes when people drink, they have this.
They get combative.
Yes.
Yeah. I get that. That could be part of it. We don't know, at this point, how much alcohol we're talking about. Michelle had a pulse until paramedics arrived. She was pronounced dead at the scene after 20 minutes. It was later determined a bullet passed from her mouth through her neck before severing her spinal cord. She also had a bleeding cut above her right eye, which would become a critical part of the later investigation. Jeremy's duty weapon was found on Michelle's left. The tactical light was turned on. Beside Michelle on the carpet, investigators found a second bullet hole. The shell casings were found nearby. So, I think we just have to run through this scene a little bit. Gunshot wound to the inside of the mouth. But it's Jeremy's duty weapon, right, that is found by her body.
It has the tactical light turned on. What's the process to do that?
Just flicking a switch.
So it's not that difficult for somebody, if they're not familiar with a gun, they could still
normally,
that.
Yeah, you could figure it out pretty easily. Normally these tactical lights are mounted underneath the front part of the gun, and it's just a little switch that you flip that would turn it on. Now, was it turned on by accident? If it was turned on purpose, why? That would be my question.
Could it be turned on during a struggle?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have this second bullet hole on the carpet. And I think you have to take that into account. Michelle had 50 hydrocodone pills in her pocket. 2 pill bottles with Jeremy's name were in her purse, which was in the kitchen. Recordings show deputies speculating at the scene that Michelle died of suicide. Officers were supposed to remove Jeremy from the scene, photograph him, and take his phone and clothing, but this didn't happen. About 2 hours after the incident, Jeremy was interviewed in a police car at the scene by Detective Jessica Hines. His off-duty sergeant sat in on the interview. Detective Hines told Frontline, "I didn't have any suspicions that it was anything other than suicide. I think that's what we were all kind of discussing, but just making sure that we covered our bases. It's always a CYA thing, just in case it's not what it appears to be." And I guess I understand that. The one thing that does trouble me, Gibbs, is this bullet hole in the carpet. If you're going to end your life by shooting yourself in the mouth, which unfortunately people do, why is there a second bullet hole in the carpet?
Yeah, did it get there first and then the second shot was in the mouth? And if so, how did that even happen, right?
Well, you could speculate it could happen during a struggle. I mean, I guess you could also say that someone not all that familiar with guns got a hold of it, accidentally discharged it while they were pointing it down, firing a shot into the carpet. But no doubt it's strange.
Yeah.
You got to figure that part out.
And I think you think about the 50 pills she had in her pocket that came from his prescription bottles. Those could have been placed in her pocket. We don't know how they got in her pocket. We just know they were in her pocket.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. In his statement, Jeremy said he and Michelle argued. Before, during, and after the concert, Michelle broke up with him on the way home. According to Jeremy, she said, "I'll have my things out by this weekend." And I said, "Are we breaking up?" She said, "Yes." And I was like, "All right." I raised my voice. She raised her voice. We argued. But when we got to the house, we were fine. Once they got home, per the New York Times, they agreed Jeremy would keep the dog. They adopted together. Jeremy told her he loved her. As she was packing, he asked Michelle for one last kiss. She said no and asked him to leave. So he went to the garage to sit on his motorcycle and wait. 2020 reported that Jeremy stayed outside with two friends. At one point, Michelle went outside to get her makeup bag from the car and quickly returned inside. Jeremy's friends left after about 10 to 20 minutes. He sat alone in the garage. He heard a popping sound. He said in his interview, "I knew exactly what it was. Just instinct, and I just said shit, and I ran inside. I started screaming her name. The bedroom door was locked, and I screamed her name again. I heard it go off again a second time. I ran into the living room. I grabbed the phone. I kicked the bedroom door in, and I found her laying where she is." Deborah Maynard, a former St. Johns County Sheriff's deputy and one of the first responders, questioned what she heard at the scene. Maynard told 2020 immediately it was almost like they were taking Jeremy's word, that she shot herself at that point. "We were told it was a suicide. They automatically said it was a suicide, though we are trained to say every scene is a homicide until proven otherwise. But they did immediately start calling it a suicide." And you and I have talked about this, I don't know how many times. Why not start with homicide until you prove it's something different? Right? It kind of goes back to, why not call it undetermined if you're not 100% sure?
Yeah, exactly.
If there's no way to be 100% sure, I don't know in this case with what we know right now, how you just go one way or the other right off the bat. Because you only have the word of one person.
And if he wasn't a deputy, if he was just a Joe Smith.
Are you saying Joe Smith couldn't be a police officer?
Well,
just a regular citizen is what? Yes. Yeah, okay, I get you.
I wonder if they would have treated it differently.
Well, I think it's a fair question, right? Does he carry more weight, or do his words carry more weight with the police because he is a member of that group? And I would say probably more likely than not, yeah, they do, or they did. Maynard was later fired for untruthfulness. However, she claimed it was because the sheriff asked her to lie in an unrelated case, and she refused. As the air turns crisp and the holidays draw near, comfort becomes the best gift of all. Quince delivers layers that last, sweaters, outerwear, and everyday essentials that feel luxurious, look timeless, and make holiday dressing and gifting effortless. Quince has it all. They have one of my favorites, the $50 Mongolian cashmere sweaters made for everyday wear. They have denim that never goes out of style, silk tops and skirts that add polish, and down outerwear built to take on the season. At the top of my list are Quince's Italian wool coats. The cuts feel designer, and the quality rivals high-end brands, but without the high-end markup. By working directly with ethical, top-tier factories, Quince skips the middlemen and offers prices 50% less than similar brands. And I mentioned the cashmere sweater. I also love their joggers. I wear both of them in the studio when it's cold. Step into the holiday season with layers made to feel good, look polished, and last. From Quince. Perfect for gifting or keeping for yourself. Go to quince.com/truecrime for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/truecrime to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/truecrime. Michelle's family believes the police were too quick to make a determination. According to her mother, Patty, deputies notified her of Michelle's death at 11:30 p.m. that night and said she committed suicide.
It does seem somewhat fast, right? I mean,
yes.
Shouldn't you allow the coroner to do their job, analyze it, and then come out with a determination?
Yeah, I'm with you. It does seem pretty quick to tell the family they know for sure it was a suicide. On September 4th, 2010, medical examiner Dr. Frederick Hoban ruled Michelle's death a suicide. Dr. Hoban observed that Michelle had no defensive wounds and wrote, there was no indication that the subject might have been recently battered.
Do you have to be recently battered to
be shot?
Yeah.
I would say no. Now, I get it. What he's saying may be absolutely true, but I'm with you. I don't know how that has any bearing on whether she shot herself or someone else shot her. Michelle had alcohol in her system, but didn't have any hydrocodone in her system. All the pills had been accounted for per 2020. And that does seem to me to be a little bit strange. You know, why does she have these pills in her pocket? If she hadn't taken any or been given them or been made to take them, there's no reason for anybody to plant the pills there.
Yeah.
Is there? Or does her having them maybe point to her mindset? Would somebody plant them to try to sow seeds of that she was planning on maybe taking the pills?
Yeah, they could have. Like, you know, this is something she thought about doing, but then she decided to do it this way instead. But you can also say, well, maybe it wasn't planted. Maybe it actually was something that she considered, and that was the avenue she was going to take.
But there were problems with the investigation from the very beginning. Officers collected Jeremy's gun, but failed to test the weapon for fingerprints, DNA, or gunshot residue. Officers failed to canvass neighbors, failed to file required reports on what officers saw that night, failed to download Jeremy's cell phone data, and failed to test one of the shirts he wore that night.
Is that because they rushed to the decision that it was a suicide?
Well, I think that's part of it. Could another part of it be that, you know, he was a police officer and they just trusted his word more than they would have trusted a non-police officer's word?
Is there any potential maybe they were trying to protect him too?
Yeah, I don't know. Because then, you know, then you get into conspiracy theory.
Right.
And not that it's outside of the realm of possibility. I would say it's more likely that they just failed to do some of the things that they would have normally done had it been me.
Right.
Or you. In a later police interview, Jeremy admitted he gained access to a report about the investigation. He said, I've already read the report. I know I probably shouldn't have. I just wanted to know what went down on the other side. In an interview 12 days after Michelle died, Jeremy said he and Michelle were arguing all the time about stupid things. He said, we don't get along. We fight all the time. I mean, it's never bad fighting. It's always just arguing.
Oh, that doesn't sound like a healthy relationship.
No, it doesn't. It probably, you know, is part of the reason why Michelle was telling people she was going to end it.
You know, the other thing is, if you're reading that report, won't it help you kind of direct your narrative?
You mean in subsequent talks with the authorities?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you are now privy to information that most people wouldn't be.
Yeah, this is what they believe. So now I know how to say certain things to back that story up.
He was asked if Michelle had ever threatened to kill herself. He said, as quoted by Frontline, a couple of months ago, maybe a month and a half or so, we got into a big fight. Words got heated, and I told her to pack up and get out of my house, and she was in the process of doing it. And she came at me, she tried to hit me, and I put her on the ground. She said, Jeremy, I don't remember exactly what she said, but I remember she said, sometimes you make me want to kill myself. According to Jeremy, this was the only time she ever said anything like this. Michelle later admitted she said it just to bother him.
Well, when you argue, you say a lot of things that you really don't mean. You can be pretty brutal to the other party.
Oh, in the heat of the moment?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I've said many things over the years that I wish I could have taken back immediately.
Yeah.
Some that are still used against me by my wife to this day, 20, 30 years later.
And me.
And you, because she doesn't forget a thing. I can tell you that.
But I think people just sometimes want to hurt the other individual, and they know they can do that with words.
Yeah, because they're hurting at that point or whatever it is. They're mad, hurting, something, and they're trying to get back. I mean, that's part of an argument, a fight. Initially, the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office didn't speak much to the family. They didn't take statements from them. Officers had a meeting with the family several weeks after Michelle died and said all indications were that Michelle died of suicide. The sheriff's office seemed to think her text from September 2nd indicated she was contemplating suicide, but her family disagreed. Michelle had plans for her future. Her appointment book was found in her car, which showed that she had scheduled CPR training for September 4th, just 2 days after she died. She had plans to meet with a friend the night she died. The family also had worries about her relationship with Jeremy. According to Christine O'Connell, she said, I asked the night that Michelle died, am I allowed to submit a statement? Because she told me a lot of things. And I'm just going to spell it out for anyone here. Domestic violence. She came to my house. She said, I'm leaving. I'm scared. He chokes me. He hits me in the head. He does things sexually to me, and I tell him to stop. She said, am I allowed to submit an affidavit just to testify to what she said? And he said, no, none of that. It's all hearsay. And unfortunately, I do understand that. Now, I don't know about an affidavit. I don't know about a statement, but in a court of law, that would be considered hearsay.
Sure. I just don't understand why the police didn't take that extra step to talk to the family, get their insight, have a better understanding of her mindset.
Yeah, at the very least, you would want to know about that, right? And who better to get that from than her family? Now, you can get it from Jeremy. The problem is Jeremy is at the scene.
Right.
So he, at the very least, has to be looked at with at least an ounce of suspicion.
Yeah. I think you have to isolate him from the scene, get his information, but I still think you have to do the diligence of talking to the family and friends and just have a better understanding of what may have happened and then go talk to him.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't get his side of it, but his side can't be the only side. And then, I go back to, they don't test this guy for gunshot residue. They don't test his clothing. That just seems like it would be just very normal stuff to do.
And doesn't require a lot of effort.
No, it seems like normal police procedure. You would think. Now, you talk about the fact that Michelle had plans, and we talk about it quite a bit, right? Why do people buy groceries, 2 weeks worth of groceries, if they're planning on ending their life? It does happen, though.
It does.
People make plans. Something goes horribly wrong in a moment, and they make that decision. So I don't think you can always look at plans and say, well, there's no way that she could have done it.
No, you never know what's going to trigger somebody.
The family accused Jeremy of being physically abusive. Patty O'Connell told Frontline, I saw him be rough with her in my house. He acted like he was fooling around and he took her down. Like the way police take a person down. It was hardcore, slam on the floor. And then when she complained, he immediately said, Michelle, I'm not hurting you. My gut feeling was that he was hurting her. Christine also said in her interview, he put his knee up on her stomach and pressed really hard and slammed her. And she called me. She said, "Chrissy, I'm bleeding." And I told her I was going to call an ambulance. And she says, "Please, you're going to make it hard on me. I don't want any trouble." She was so scared to go for help. I think she may have been influenced by the fact that he would lose his job and retaliate against her. And so, back to your point, I think if investigators had gone out at the very beginning and interviewed the family, these are things they would have heard, right? Directly from them.
Yeah.
But they didn't bother to take that step. And I think no matter, what a person decides about a case, suicide, no, I don't believe it was. I believe this person did it. It's kind of hard to look at some of these things that the police did or didn't do and say, "Oh yeah, that's totally understandable." It's hard to overlook that.
Yeah.
And I also think when you can question all of those things, does it also not make you want to question their findings or, their initial impressions of the scene? Because it came so quickly.
It really did.
And without really much to back it up. In January 2011, the sheriff of St. Johns County asked the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to conduct an independent investigation. FDLE investigator Rusty Rogers was assigned to the case. Christine O'Connell told state investigators that Michelle said she might have to make Jeremy believe breaking up was his idea. She also talked about the incident where Jeremy made Michelle bleed after play wrestling, but she didn't want to go to the hospital. There were other incidents that were unreported for fear of causing trouble for Jeremy. According to the New York Times, on one occasion, Michelle came home and found Jeremy masturbating to a picture of a former girlfriend. He then smeared semen on her face and hair. Jeremy denied the latter part of the story.
That's different.
Yeah, but he didn't deny masturbating to the picture. He just denied the smearing of the semen on her face and hair.
But I'm sure it didn't make his
then girlfriend feel very good.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it would. Number one, most women wouldn't be happy if you just even had a picture of a former girlfriend, let alone if you're pleasuring yourself to that picture.
Yeah. Not going to go over well.
Many of the officers investigator Rogers spoke to agreed with the suicide conclusion, but not all of them. For example, Sergeant Scott Beaver said, "When I first walked into that room, the first thought that went through my mind was, this is not good for Jeremy. I don't think so. I mean, I was a little uneasy where I remember seeing the shot in the floor and where the gun was. I was in the homicide unit for a few years and it didn't add up, but I didn't do more investigation into this to see why things were like they were." And, I understand that because I raised that issue. To me, that shot in the floor seems out of place for someone who is intent on putting a gun in their mouth and pulling the trigger.
Yeah, it doesn't add up. Doesn't seem realistic. Why would you shoot the gun into the ground and put the gun in your mouth and pull the trigger?
Well, again, in my mind, could it be accidental? Yes, absolutely. Especially with someone who has not had a lot of experience with guns. You could put your finger on the trigger, accidentally fire off a round. But it could, to me, just as likely be maybe two people struggling over a gun and it happens to go off.
And for me, I think that would have been the first sign for investigators to say, "Hey, we've got two shots here. We probably should go ahead and test his hands."
And do some investigation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right with you. During his investigation, Rogers found two neighbors who said they heard a woman screaming for help, followed by two gunshots on the night of September 2nd. The neighbors were Stacy Boswell and Heather Ladley. They told nearly identical stories in separate interviews. The women were talking in Stacy's garage when they heard a faint argument. They walked down the driveway to hear better. Stacy told Frontline that the argument came from between the house and the fence. We knew it was coming right from right over there in that open patch. At first, I couldn't tell who it was, but one voice was higher than the other one, and then one was real deep. And then we heard a woman yell for help, and then we heard a gunshot. And then there was another yell for help, and then another gunshot.
Now, when you hear that, you're thinking there was a struggle.
It makes it sound like that. There was approximately 10 to 15 minutes of silence before they heard sirens, which is why they didn't call the police. The next day, they learned that the shooting happened in a deputy's house. Heather Ladley wasn't sure. She wanted to give a statement against a deputy. And I get that, right? We talk a lot about, do you really want to insert yourself into an investigation, give a statement when you're not sure that something is going to be done to someone and they're in a position where they might be able to retaliate against you?
Yeah, they have a level of power.
Whether that be a police officer, a known criminal, these are things you got to think about. Both witnesses passed lie detector tests issued by the Secret Service.
Some credibility.
Yeah, again, make of lie detector tests what you will. Agent Rogers interviewed Jeremy Banks and asked a University of Florida child protection team to interview Alexis, who was only 5 years old at the time. Alexis indicated that Jeremy was a bad person who fights with her mother. She also said she saw Jeremy hit her mother one time with a belt. Alexis reported that her mother would say, "Stop, stop," but Jeremy wouldn't stop. And that just breaks your heart. Yeah, you're talking about a 5-year-old who has lost her mother. She's telling this story, and it does not paint Jeremy in a good light.
No, these are the memories embedded in her.
Now, some people would say, can you rely on what a 5-year-old says? I get it. A defense attorney would certainly argue that. But unless somebody, kind of coaxed that out of her or coached her to say that, it seems like it's pretty damning.
It goes to that thing that sometimes kids say the damnest things, right? Kids will just say what's on their mind. Kids will just say what they know. And I think that's the case, right?
Well, but also kids will make stuff up. I'm not saying that's what happened here, but they do sometimes. That doesn't sound like, something out there, though, that a child would make up.
Right.
During his interview, Jeremy said he only put his hands on Michelle once to restrain her after she charged at him. He claimed he used the leg sweep maneuver to put Michelle on the ground so she would stop hitting him. And man, we have heard, guys say this quite a bit. Yeah, I put my hands on her, but it was only because she was coming at me. Now, does that happen? Absolutely.
Sure it does. And you have to protect yourself.
We know women can fight. But is what he's saying the truth? That's the thing about all of this. When you only have one person's side of it, how do you figure out what's the truth and what's not?
That's the problem here.
Michelle can't give her side of any of these things or her account of any of these situations or incidents. It wasn't until February 2011 that state investigators tested for fingerprints, DNA, and gunshot residue. There was no blood found on the gun, and it didn't have Jeremy Banks' DNA or fingerprints on it. Michelle's DNA was found on the gun, but not on the 2 pill bottles in her purse. There was a forensically insignificant amount of gunshot residue on Jeremy's hands, even though he said he held Michelle moments after she shot herself. This led the FDLE to suspect he washed his hands before the test, which he denies. It was said significant gunshot residue was found on Michelle's hands. There were also 2 tiny spots of Michelle's blood on the inside of Jeremy's t-shirt. Jeremy told investigators he didn't know how it got there. Now, one focus of the FDLE's investigation was how the cut above Michelle's right eye happened. The FDLE called in crime scene reconstructionist Jerry Finley. He believed the cut matched the protruding gun sight on the end of the pistol's barrel. This conflicted the findings of Dr. Hoban, who attributed the cut to the ejected bullet casing. And I don't know about this ejected bullet casing theory. I mean, I've been hit by hundreds of ejected bullet casings, while at the gun range. I've never received a cut anywhere.
Yeah.
They can be very hot if they land on your arm or something, but I've never received a cut. Now, I've also never fired a gun very close to my head. So Finley fired the gun 18 times in different positions and concluded for the shells to end up where they did, in the corner of the room behind and to the left of Michelle's body. Whoever pulled the trigger had to have been left-handed. Jeremy Banks is left-handed, but Michelle was not.
That's a big statement right there.
It is, but could someone not pull the trigger with their non-dominant hand? You can. I don't think most people do. Now, could you also turn the gun around and pull it with your thumbs? And I think the answer to that is yes as well.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of possibilities there.
But I get what he's saying. If someone were shooting it with their dominant hand, which is how most people do it, the person most likely would be left-handed. Finley also found the absence of Jeremy's DNA on the gun suspicious. Jeremy has denied cleaning the gun before police arrived.
It's his gun. Clearly, it has to have his DNA on it. He didn't clean it and never touched it again until she got her hands on it, according to him.
Well, and this is not, a citizen's gun who cleans it and then puts it in a safe, right? This is his everyday work gun.
Yeah. So it's his gun. Clearly, he's got to have some type of DNA on it.
Yeah, because he's handling it, you would think, quite a bit. He's shooting it every now and then, right? Officers have to qualify or stay qualified. They go to the range. I don't know. That seems very strange to have no DNA of his on the gun whatsoever. It does make it seem as though he wiped it down. Finley submitted his findings in April 2011, writing, "The totality of the circumstances are not consistent with suicide. However, they are consistent with homicide." Agent Rusty Rogers presented the findings to medical examiner Dr. Frederick Hoban, who performed Michelle's autopsy during the original investigation. Hoban filled out an amended death certificate that listed homicide as the manner of death, but he never officially filed it. In a recorded interview with a reporter, Hoban said he came to believe Michelle's death was probably a homicide. Hoban said in the interview, "And I said that based on this, I would amend the autopsy and change the manner of death from suicide to homicide. I did that, but just internally. I mean, I didn't send it out. It wasn't filed with anybody, wasn't sent to the funeral director, wasn't disclosed to anyone except the state attorney."
Why wouldn't you want to clear it up everywhere?
I don't know. It seems strange to me. The FDLE began briefing local state attorney R.J. Lariza. Lariza's investigators examined autopsy photos and noticed what looked like a broken tooth, which was not documented by the medical examiner. Dr. Hoban has since acknowledged he should have documented the mouth more thoroughly.
Yeah, maybe somebody shoved the gun in her mouth.
Yeah, maybe you should just document everything.
Yeah, that's kind of what your job is.
Thoroughly in an autopsy. The prosecutor's office considered whether to exhume Michelle's body and asked the family for permission to do so if necessary. They agreed. And I know that has to be tough, right, on the family to have a loved one's body exhumed. But in this case, I understand why they would agree to that. They want the answers.
Absolutely, and deserve the answers.
And they're not happy with what they've gotten so far. In October 2011, State Attorney R.J. Lariza asked the governor to appoint a special prosecutor. The prosecutor asked to be recused due to his close professional relationship with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. According to the New York Times, Dr. Hoban claimed that before stepping aside, Lariza told him to wait for the new prosecutor before filling the revised finding of homicide. Dr. Hoban told Frontline that Louisa said the case was going to take a new direction. Hoban was later reprimanded by the state medical examiner's office for keeping that document and others at his home, rather than at the medical examiner's office. This guy's not looking great.
No.
You'd have to say that.
I think there's some protocol that has to be met.
Hoban was soon joined by new chief medical examiner Dr. Predrag Bulick. Governor Rick Scott appointed a special prosecutor, Brad King. King relied on the opinions of 3 medical examiners who concluded Michelle died of suicide. One of those was Dr. Hoban, who by that point had changed his mind again. King also consulted with Dr. Bulick, who took over from Dr. Hoban. Dr. Bulick believed Michelle's death was a suicide, and an exhumation would not produce further forensic evidence. He also explained the cut above Michelle's eye by saying she turned the gun upside down, put the gun barrel in her mouth, and pulled the trigger with her thumb. The tactical light broke the skin above her eye, causing the cut.
His opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's his opinion. There's no possible way that he could know for sure that's what happened. It is important to note that the gun was kept in a retention holster, which is designed to make it difficult for the average person to quickly remove. However, that does not mean it's impossible to figure out. And I would say beyond a doubt, it's not impossible. There are levels of retention.
Yeah.
When it comes to holsters, and normally police officers, they have a certain level, I believe, that they're required to meet, but it's not rocket science, right? To figure out how to release the gun from the holster. The New York Times asked 3 independent experts to evaluate Dr. Bulick's finding that the tactical light cut Michelle's skin as the gun fired. All said the theory lacked credibility. The experts said that if Michelle held the gun as Dr. Bulick suggested, the spent casing might not have ejected because her grip would have covered the ejection port. If it had ejected, it would have gone in the opposite direction from where it was found, and her hand would have been wounded from the slot.
Exactly what I was thinking. Wouldn't her hand have some type of injury?
Yeah, I mean, if the hand was that far down, if the gun's upside down and her hand is far enough down on it to contact with the slide, it could. But I do think if the gun's upside down, you could definitely make the argument that the casing's going to go in the opposite direction.
For sure.
In March 2012, Brad King's office contacted Michelle's family and said that they wouldn't prosecute Jeremy Banks. He declared the case closed. And, this decision was based primarily on the pathologist's findings. Michelle's family believes the sheriff's office blinded itself to the possibility that the shooting was a fatal incident of domestic violence because Jeremy Banks was a deputy. And this is something that we've kind of hinted at all along, right? How much investigation did they do or not do based on the fact that this guy was in law enforcement?
Yeah.
Did that cloud, their judgment on some things? Did they also give him the benefit of the doubt because of it? And did they rush to this suicide determination because of what he said and how much value they placed on what he said?
I think based on the investigation the FDLE did, I would say, yeah.
Crime scene reconstructionist Jerry Finley told the New York Times that when King's investigators came to talk to him, the whole tone of the interview was for me to tailor my report or soften my report to where it would be more conducive to suicide rather than homicide.
Now, why would you want that?
Well, if he's correct and truthful, then they just want him to blindly back up their theory. In the prosecutor's memo, investigators wrote that Finley had not considered the upside down gun theory, which was untrue. He told them he had ruled it out. Jeremy Banks filed a lawsuit against the FDLE and agent Rusty Rogers, claiming Rogers detained him for the purpose of investigation, which violated his civil rights. In late March 2013, Sheriff David Shore released a 152-page review of the case that was mostly a positive assessment of the sheriff's department. He criticized the field tests because it didn't take into account all the variables at the scene. He also accused Agent Rogers of coaching witnesses and using false information to get a warrant. Shore acknowledged the department made missteps in how the investigation was handled, such as failing to canvass the neighborhood for witnesses, failing to interview Michelle's family, and failing to isolate, interview, and photograph Jeremy in a structured environment.
Well, at least they're admitting these failures.
But these are pretty big failures, right?
Huge to me.
I think early on, you would have to say these are big failures. Witness Stacy Boswell said they were never coached. The report also stated the witnesses admitted to smoking marijuana and couldn't remember if they did so on the night in question, but this was not true. So, when you say it's good that he's admitting some mistakes, yeah, I do believe it is. But it also seems as though this report is saying, yeah, we should have done this, this, and this. But we still believe in our determination. And, oh, by the way, witnesses were coached. Some of these witnesses smoked marijuana. It's kind of like throwing shade at some of these people who had anything to say that was contradictory to the official law enforcement position. Jeremy Banks returned to active duty after a year of paid administrative leave. According to the New York Times, the only formal accusation against Jeremy for which he was reprimanded was that he had not secured his service pistol. Jeremy told investigators he sometimes dropped his gun belt on the floor. After work, his former roommate, Deputy Michael Plott, told the New York Times he had guns everywhere. I told him he had to keep the guns locked up in his room when my kids were there. Deputy Plott also said Jeremy had anger issues. His temper was uncontrollable. He'd drink and he'd just get pissed.
Well, we know he drank at the concert that night.
Yeah. And here you have a deputy, Jeremy's former roommate, saying some things that, they're not real flattering towards Jeremy. However, Plott said he had never seen Jeremy being violent. When asked why Jeremy didn't take Michelle's pulse or perform life-saving measures, his attorney, Mac McLeod, told 2020, I don't think his frame of mind was as a deputy. At the time, I think his frame of mind was completely shocked and freaked out. Jeremy's attorney acknowledged that he did not secure his firearm well, saying, I think that the policy was to secure your firearm, which primarily for law enforcement officers means you either put it in a gun lock or in a secure place up higher so that children and things and other people in the house can't get to it. However, in practice, like other law enforcement officers, he came in, would take his gun belt off, and would place it on a chair or place it somewhere else. On October 3rd, 2014, Governor Rick Scott issued an executive order reopening the investigation into Michelle's death with a special prosecutor appointed to investigate. This came 1 month after an accusation made by former bar owner Danny Harmon. According to a police affidavit, Harmon said Jeremy came into his bar the night after Michelle died and made disturbing remarks. According to Harmon, he told me that all she ever did was put him down and make him feel bad about himself. He was going to be moving on with his life, and he wasn't going to let her hold him back anymore. This is what he told ABC. Jeremy's attorney, Mac McLeod, denied that Jeremy ever even spoke to Harmon. In July 2015, Michelle's family successfully lobbied the state to open a fourth investigation, and they are just not letting it go. But I can understand why. A lot of times in these unsolved, right, the family's not happy with the investigation. They're not happy with final determinations. But I think you can really see why in this case.
Sure. And here recently, and here in 2014, you have this bar owner under oath saying he came in the day after talking about how he was going to move on with his life, that he wasn't happy. It seems strange to me.
Yeah, I think like with every case we talk about, or many cases, right? It really comes down to who all is telling the truth. But in this one, Gibbs, I think you have, is Jeremy telling the truth or all these other different people, right? Because there are a lot of people saying things that are very damning to him and to the specific events in question that night. You talk about the witnesses that heard a shot, the fighting, a woman screaming, and then another shot. That doesn't scream out suicide.
No.
In June 2016, the family had Michelle's body exhumed and asked Dr. William Anderson, a forensic pathologist and former deputy chief medical examiner for Orange County, Florida, to examine the original autopsy report and do a second autopsy. Anderson examined x-rays taken during the original autopsy and found a fracture in Michelle's jawbone. After learning of the exhumation, Sheriff David Short issued a statement about the family and said in part, per 2020, molesting Michelle from her place of rest using some freelance type approach is beyond unconventional. It was reprehensible. And I think that's a rough statement to make against the family. You know, if they want to get to the truth or what they believe is the truth, and they think that's the best route,
it's their right.
It's their right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where he gets off saying that. That seems rough to me.
Is he concerned about something?
Well, I mean, most likely he's concerned about the department looking even worse than it already has. Yes, he's admitted to some mistakes, but if this comes out to be a homicide committed by an officer, that's going to be a different level. And I'm sure nobody in law enforcement wants that to happen, especially the sheriff. People were questioning Dr. Hoban's work in the original autopsy, but Jeremy's attorney told 2020 that Dr. Hoban noted mandibular separation. It's not in the autopsy report, it's in his field notes. Okay. Why wouldn't it be in the autopsy report?
He also changed it to homicide, but never filed it.
And then changed his mind back to suicide.
Yeah.
Dr. Anderson said the fact that the jaw fracture was left out of the autopsy report was very disturbing because if everything else is very carefully described and you leave out a major finding from your report, it's not a good practice. And I'm not a medical examiner, but that sounds correct to me. You know, why not document everything you find? If you start leaving things out, how could you not question the autopsy?
Kind of seems like the original autopsy was kind of lazy.
Or was it done specifically to back up a finding of suicide? Because I think that's an argument that some may make.
Sure.
Anderson said the fracture could explain what happened to Michelle before she died. He said the primary concern is what does the actual evidence show? And the actual evidence was there was a gunshot wound to the mouth that put a hole in the tongue, but didn't do any other damage to the teeth, to the gums, to the floor of the mouth, the very soft tissue that basically would have been destroyed if there had been enough force from the blast to break the jaw. So the only explanation that I can see that's reasonable is that there was another force, a blow to the chin that broke the mandible prior to the time the gunshot wound was inflicted. My findings are that there was a blunt force to the chin that rendered her at least some degree impaired, her mental status from the blow, and that the gun was then in the mouth and discharged, and that the gun blast from the muzzle did not cause the fracture.
That's a pretty important finding.
It is. He said, in other words, that blow would explain it, that blow to the chin. Gun inside would explain everything. It would explain the fracture. It would explain the fact that there's no expansion injury to the jaw. It would explain why the tissues are still in place, except for the tongue. And there's nothing really in the findings that would contradict that theory. Jeremy's attorney, Mac McLeod, argued that if Michelle had been hit, there would have been bruising. But Anderson explained that if someone dies quickly enough, they won't have bruising.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, if true, I think it's very interesting. In 2017, the Florida Medical Examiners Commission reprimanded Dr. Frederick Hoban and Dr. Predrag Bulick after determining they mishandled some of the components of the investigation. Hoban for keeping case material at his home, and Bulick for showing autopsy photos to non-family members. Okay, that seems like a very bad practice.
Yeah.
Hoban was also called out for failing to document the jawbone fracture in his autopsy report. In the spring of 2018, a judge found that FDLE agent Rusty Rogers had probable cause to detain Jeremy Banks for homicide and dismissed Jeremy's civil lawsuit. After the lawsuit was dismissed, Michelle's family pushed Governor Rick Scott to assign a new special prosecutor to the case, but Scott didn't appoint one before his term ended. And he had already appointed how many? 2 or 3, I think?
At least 2.
On January 31st, 2019, the police responded to the suspicious death of an amateur sleuth who had been researching Michelle's case. The victim was 38-year-old Ellie Washtalk, a gender nonconforming person who sometimes went by Eli. It's unclear how Washtalk identified at the time of death. Washtalk was found dead in their condo in St. Augustine within the jurisdiction of St. Johns County. The department turned the case over to neighboring Putnam County. The death was classified as a homicide, and the case remains open. Washtalk had been independently researching Michelle's case. Washtalk's son was the one who found the body and called 911. The son reported that Washtalk was shot with their own gun. He said in his call that shots had gone through the wall. He also explained that he was staying in a different condo the night before. Washtalk's sister, Jessica Tiffany, said Washtalk put the son downstairs out of fear something may happen to him. She told News 4 Jax, after his passing, we were also made aware that he had been made aware of some people watching his movements.
So some people were not happy that he was looking into
this case. Detectives said they had a person of interest, but no hard leads to name a suspect. They believe the killer was someone Washtalk knew because a stranger couldn't have made it past the security gate. There were also no signs of forced entry. However, Jessica said money was taken from a jar inside the condo. Michelle's mother was close with Washtalk and believes they were killed because they were getting deep into the investigation. Washtalk's sister agrees. Okay, I mean, that's just another mystery in this whole thing. You know, here you have an amateur sleuth investigating the case who turns up dead. Now, could it technically have nothing to do with Michelle's murder or case? Yeah, it could. Could it also be that this person was getting close to something? I don't think you can rule that out either. The murder remains unsolved 6 years later. Anyone with information about Washtalk's death should call the Putnam County Sheriff's Office at 386-329-0800 or Crime Stoppers of Northeast Florida at 1-888-277-8477. The Putnam County Sheriff's Office said there is a reward up to $5,000 for information that could lead to a conviction. So as we wrap this case up, Gibbs, I mean, there's just so much going on here. You know, Jeremy Banks has always denied having any involvement in Michelle's death. He's never been charged with a crime related to her death. But you have to ask the question, why is that? Is it because of a shoddy investigation, or is it because even with the best investigation, they wouldn't have been able to put together enough evidence to really charge him? I don't know. I don't know if Jeremy killed Michelle or if Michelle ended her life. There's no way for me to know that. What I will say is there's a lot of stuff that is very suspicious in this case.
Yeah, I mean, you even have the medical examiner flip-flopping
multiple times. Snip, snap, snip, snap.
But then you have the FDLE doing an investigation, really turning up some very critical pieces of potential evidence.
Well, and you have other examiners completely going the other way than Hoban.
Yeah.
And I keep going back to the fact that there just wasn't much of anything from Jeremy found on his service weapon. I really don't know how that could be.
It's strange. And then the fact that it seems like her jaw was broken.
No, I think it was. I think even Hoban admitted that and that he just didn't document it.
And I think if it was documented, it might have changed the direction of the investigation at that time.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's almost like the butterfly effect. If this, and this was done early on, how does it change the course of the investigation?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there's no way to know how it would have gone. We only know what happened to lead us to this point right now.
I feel like to do the case due diligence, the governor needs to open it up. The new governor needs to assign a special prosecutor to review it and determine what direction needs to happen.
Yeah, I just think it's tough, man, when you don't do things right up front. Not to say that it can't be solved, but obviously it makes things tougher. There's just no doubt about it.
Yeah, and if Jeremy didn't do anything wrong, he has nothing to worry about.
Right.
So let the state open it up. Let the state do what they need to do, and that will allow the family to get the answers that they deserve.
But I think one to keep an eye on, because there just seems to be something here other than her taking her own life. It just doesn't seem to fit with the evidence we have. But I don't know. We'll wait to see if any other, developments come down the pike. But that's it for our episode on the murder of Michelle O'Connell. We got a voicemail. You want to check that out?
Let's hear it.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Tats and Cats. Gibby, I just got your message on Facebook wishing me good luck on my upcoming fight. You guys are like celebrities to me. It means a lot. Getting a good luck from you guys and from you, Gibby. How awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Definitely post pics and videos of my fight. And just thank you so much for the message. That means a lot to me. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Gibby. God bless. You guys stay safe and keep your own time ticking. I'll talk to you soon.
He's an awesome dude, man.
Yeah. I appreciate the voicemail.
Yeah.
I think that's the power of you being back on social media. People have missed you during your self-imposed hiatus from social media. So
I think he wants to go to the mat with me, but I think he's knowing that I have a special set of skills that I
can guarantee
own type of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's called bullshitsu. I can guarantee that nobody wants to go to the mat with you wearing your tights or your wrestling outfit.
My singlet?
Your singlet.
Yeah.
I don't want to be involved in, I don't even want to watch that, to be honest with you. The sweat and the just commingling of, no, I don't want that.
Yeah, it's disturbing right now to use it. I can tell.
I can't get that picture out of my head.
Yeah, but I hope he won his match.
Me
too.
It's
a pretty important one. So,
me too.
Yep.
All right, buddy. That is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
This November, action is free on Pluto TV. Go on the run with Jack Reacher.
Every suspect was a trained killer.
Then buckle up for Drive, World War Z.
Every human being we save is one less to fight.
And Charlie's Angels.
Damn, I hate to fly.
Launch into sci-fi adventure with The Fifth Element and laugh through the mayhem in Tropic Thunder.
What is going on here?
All the thrills, all for free. Pluto TV. Stream now. Pay never.